you can see down here, here's the here's the chassis back from the powder coat. As you can see, it's looking really good. Nice satin black finish on it. That's my chassis number there. Obviously, being a matching number GTS, I didn't want to show that chassis number. But yeah, I've got the radiator support mounts that go either side here, so I can mount that radiator support. Won't be putting that on until all the engine and stuff is mounted in the chassis. I have all these steering and suspension components down here. So I have the upper and lower control arms back from the, like I said, back from the powder coating. We have all these bushings and ball joints, tie rod ends from Resto Country, Rare Spares, Kingswood Country, wherever I could get the parts that I thought best suited the car. Over there is my engine mounts and engine stands that go on between the chassis and the engine mount. We have the what do you call it over there? The sway bar. Lost it for a second. All brand new bolts for reassembling. You can see some of these correct bolts here. Steering to frame and upper control arm mount bolts. They come in black because they're 8.8. They're a high tensile bolt. The other ones are all these zinc coated. They go through the control arms bushings. All the bolts for the shock absorbers, all these other bolts that are required, front and rear control arm bush bolts. There's the dust covers for the back of the brakes. There's the sway bar mounts, the mount for the what do you call it? The proportioning valve, number plate. Here's the steering arms. Here's the upper control arm mounts. Everything's here that we need. Spindles, springs. I had all the suspension, all the bracketry for the bumper bars done at the same time. So there's the bumper irons for the back. There's the two different types that come for the front. I had all the new springs blasted of all their colour. They've got king springs. They're just a standard spring. They've been blasted and powder coated black. Front shocks are over there, rear shocks are here, rear control arms. I have two sets of rear control arms. One set has a set of holes in it for a sway bar, but I've heard mixed discussions around whether they come with sway bars or not. So regardless, I did both sets in sandblasting and powder coating. And there's my cross-membered transmission mount there. I've got a seal kit to put through. There's a dust cover, that's done too. There's a seal kit to put for that transmission there. Engine's ready to go. Sitting there ready to bolt in. So sit back, enjoy the ride, enjoy what I'm doing here. This is the best part of rebuilding a car, is when you get everything back and it's all new, it's all looking freaking awesome, and you get to assemble it all with all new parts, all new bolts. This is crazy fun. Next up after that, I'll be attacking the coupe body. Got a full floor to go in that, and then plenty of work on the quarters and the pillars on it to do some, and the cowl to do some weld repairs. But for now, sit back, enjoy the video. What we've got first up is we have the upper control arms. Like I said to you before, when these things get media blasted and they come back, they're like brand new. Have a look at the quality of that. You can see this one's the left hand control arm. So what I got to do here is, when I mentioned I got to buff things out, is in the bores here where the control arm bushes fit in, if you just try and press the bush in there with that much powder coating in, that hole is like half a millimeter to a millimeter too small now to fit the bush in there. So I'll grab the bush and I'll show you. Find it. There it is. Yeah. So there's the actual bush that fits in there. They press in from outside. I mean, you can see that is massive interference to try and fit in there. So what I got to do is I just got to lightly buff that with a little buffing wheel, probably just on me drill for now, just till I see clean steel. Then I'll press both of these in. But when you press them in, you've got to do them in conjunction with your control arm. It's called a spindle or pivot point, whatever you want to call it, which is these things here. So you can see that's how it looks. This is this had I put rubber over the end of it here to keep the control arm from getting media blasted on these ends here. You can still see they're in excellent condition. They've got the little machining grooves in them, a little bit of surface rust that I'll buff off. But so that bush, when it fits through the arm, fits through that as well. So once the bush is pressed into this side here, you kind of got to get one arm through the hole here, like it's around there, one arm through the hole here, put it through that new bush you've just pressed in, and then press the last one in on this side over here. So when you finish, you end up with a complete unit that pivots off those bushes. So look, I'll show you how I do that. Righto, so I just did this one, and I'll show you actually what I did on the next one. So this one I haven't done yet, and this one I've done. This one here, you can see that the bush doesn't come close to starting. This one here, I just buffed out the powder cut out there, and it has a little chamfer on the front of this thing. And you can see once you put it in there, it actually starts to engage in there. And once I put it on the press, or use my ball joint press, I'll be able to press that bush in, which will be good. So I'll swing the camera around down there where I'm doing it. I'm just doing it sitting on that chair down here. So I'll just show you what I'm doing here now. I just have the old trusty Ryobi drill. You can see it has a where's the camera? This side has a little flapper disc, little sort of bore buffing wheel on the end of it. This is a worn one. I should have probably bought some more, but it's nice and smooth. It doesn't take a lot of meat off, so it probably takes a minute or two to do it. So that's the one I've done. This side here, I just sit it on my knee. Just polish it through until you just see steel start to shine through. You don't want to keep buffing, you make it too big and the actual bush will be too loose. Try it this way so you can see it a bit easier. Really doesn't take much. Where haven't I done? Done all around there. Pretty much done all of it. Alright, so you remember that one there didn't fit before. Where we're looking now, so you see if I start to put that in the end there, put it in position, it'll actually hold the bush in there. So I'll buff out the other one and I'll buff out the 2 lower control arms, and then I'll start pressing the pieces together. Okay, same deal on the lower control arms. You can see here how powder coat is fully encased that hole there. But if you look on the other side here where I've buffed it out, you can see just a little bit of a shine of steel through it, tiny little bit of powder coating still in there. And these are the bushes that I've got those ones. Quite a substantial bush. As you can see, it goes in most of the way, and then it has this little raised section just in here. So that internal bore there is smaller than here. So this here, you can see how hopefully you can see it from the picture, this is a larger diameter up here than it is down here. So it fits through, and then it just presses in that last amount there, as you can see. So what you got to do is you got to make a spacer that goes between these two pieces here. Otherwise, when you press it, you just bend that arm out and you bend that arm in, and you end up with a bent control arm. So that's that side. This is the side that I've already buffed out. It's quite tight. When you press it in there, it gets ready to start, so it's almost through, ready to be pressed in. So I'll give these a bit of a buff, and I'll show you what I do with that one. So this one's a slightly bigger flapper disc wheel. So again, I'll just stick it in the bore here, and I'll just buff it out. So that's the outer one pretty much done. And just the inner one. Really doesn't take much. So there's that bush is going to go in that way. This bush will get pressed in that way, and it'll be a half rebuilt control arm. There's a rubber bump stop that goes on there. Your shock absorber mounts up through the hole into these bolts here, and then I've got a ball joint that's got to go in that hole there. So I'll buff that ball joint hole out while I'm going. Quite easy to get a bit carried away with this and go too far. So the ball joint that fits in there looks like this. There's the split pin for it. There's the nut. So you can see in that bore there, nice and shiny steel. This one here goes up through the hole, and you can see this ball joint has like a knurled edge here. I'm not sure if you can actually see it, but there's a bit of a knurled edge on this. When you press it in through that hole there, that knurl bites into the side of the steel there when you push it in there. And like you can see, it's still sticking way out now, but once it goes in there, it'll be nice and tight, and that will be a complete control arm build. I'll get everything assembled, and we'll start pressing these bushes in, and we'll press this ball joint in. Keep watching. Right, so what I got set up here in the vise is I'm doing the lower control arm bushes. You can see here that space around. You can see here, this is the ball joint press tool. I've got a pipe, an old piece of pipe on the back there, which has the ball joint sort of flanges on each end. You can see here where I've got the bush through the bore there. This is a bit of water pipe I just cut in half. It fits through there. So if you don't put something in there, it will collapse that those two faces together, and you really don't want that. So just got to make sure that it's fairly well aligned through there. Looks like it's going straight through that pipe there. Put that in place. Got heaps of shit on my bench. I really need to get rid of it all. Put a bit of cardboard under there so your nice new control line doesn't smash against the bench. And start tightening it. And you'll see it'll compress a little bit until it starts to go in. When it gets really tight, sometimes it presses enough to stop that little. See how that space has gone tight now? That means it's trying to collapse that joint there. So that space there will just keep crushing them in. You can see at the end here, there's still a little bit to be pressed in. Alright, so it's nearly home. Oh, that's quite tight when you think about the size of the shifting spanner that I've got on, or adjustable spanner I've got on the end of this thing. So back that off, take that out of there, try and get all these parts out without too much damage there. You can see now that bush is fully pressed in there, nice and tight both sides. I just got to give it a bit of a hit with a rubber mallet on that side there, which will free up that arm a little bit. It's well through, so you know it's definitely in there. And I'll get that bit of pipe out. Give me 2 seconds and I'll get the hammer and rubber mallet and show you. Right, so there's that bit of metal thing still in there. I want to hit that little flange there. When I do, it should come loose. There you go. So as you can see on this side here, it's still fully in, nice and snug. It's well through the bush. You can see the drag marks on the back of it here where it's scraped through the metal, and it's nice and tight around the hole there. So yeah, that's how you install. I did one before on how to remove these control arm bushes, but that's how you reinstall them. Okay, here's another example on the other bush. One's in there now. The other one's in place. It's got a ball joint press bush on this side, ball joint press on this press bush on this side. Has a bit of water pipe in the middle, centralized, so this can actually stick through like that when I jack it in there. And that's my piece of water pipe spacer. You'll see it's just a bit of water pipe. I just buffed up a bit so it looks smoother. Sit it in there so I don't collapse that joint, and then go to town on it with a shifter or an impact drive or whatever. You'll see it's pushing in there. It gets tighter as you go along. I just like to back it off halfway, have a look, make sure everything's sort of lined up like it should be. You see that's loose there now, but if I give this arm a bit of a hit, that one, sorry. Just should loosen up that pipe. Make sure it's central in there. It is. Just tap that down a bit. This is still lined up on this side. Put that bit of spacer back in there again and go to town on it. Actually, I should tighten this twice that one, don't look how loose the bloody thing is. Oh, it's mainly loose on this swivel joint on it. Right. And still lined up. Still looks lined up, yep. And tighten it up till it's in. Oh no, it'll stop. It'll press up hard against that space where I put in the middle of it there. There we go. Mission accomplished. Take these spaces out. You can see in here any last little bit of powder coating that's in there. It's that tight in there, it just pushes that powder coat. Sure enough, you can see that little bit of stuff there, but that's the bush. They're supposed to be well through like this is here, flush like this is on this side. And that's it, that's the control arm part of it done. Now I'll get the ball joint. We'll press that ball joint in. Right, what you can see here is I have the ball joint. Actually, I'll take it out and I'll show you. Before I press it in, I've got, there's the ball joint sort of half hanging out there. You can see, I don't know if you can see, in that little edge there's that knurled bit I was telling you about that presses into the bush. I got a pipe out of my ball joint set sitting in there. I could do this with the ball joint press, but this is the simple way. If you don't have a full press, this is a 20-ton press I got here. If you don't have a 20-ton press at home, find someone that's got a ball joint press, which is just that big G-clamp thing I used. This is that pipe socket I used on the other thing. It fits around the outside there, so it fits quite snug. You want to press this on the outside, never press that on the middle there, or you'll collapse the ball joint. Sit that around there. I've got this ball joint socket on here. Make sure you slide it so it's directly under the jack, center of the jack. Press, not jack. Start pumping the press here. Hopefully you'll see that gap there. Maybe I can spin it around towards you a bit there. Let me just see if you can see that. You should be able to see that there now. Let me zoom in a bit. Oh, it's hard to see, everything's black. But you'll see that press down into that joint there. See how it's going down in there? I can see up here it's only metric tons. It's only like 3 or 4 ton of pressure to push that in there. I'll just release it, just spray it up a bit. It's a bit out of whack. I can see it pressed on one side. Yeah, that's what I'm saying there. It's a bit skewed at the moment. I need to press the other side in so it goes in flat. Let me just have a look how it's looking at the moment. I don't want to totally collapse that ball joint. Here's what I'm talking about. See how you can see it's touching the back there, because that's where the socket was sitting, but it's not touching the front over here. So you can't leave it like that. You actually have to get that thing in square. Make sure this is down here. There's enough gap for your nut to go through the hole down there. Put it back in. Jack a bit more. Keep saying jack, but press is what I mean. Start pressing again. Alright, I can see now that gap is closed all the way around there. I have just on 4.5 ton on the gauge. Release it. Take the parts out. And there you go. You can see that the ball joint, oops, I don't know if you can see it, but the ball joint, you can see that knurl sticking through down there. And the back side, nice and flush, no damage on it. And that's it. That's how you press in a ball joint And control arm bushes. Right, upper control arm bush install. This is what the bushes look like. It's just a small bush. You can see I just put a little bit of lubrication on them, just so they slip in through the bore there. As you can see, this is a ball joint removal tool. People say you can't install the bushes with this tool. I'm going to show you that you can. You can definitely install the first one, and then I install the second one on the press, and I'll show you how I do that. So if you just watch this now, so this is just sitting there. It's only just engaged in there. There's a full spacer like one of these, but to suit that size in that gap, which is between the main block and the top one, and this is pushing straight on the rubber from that bush there. So if I just get this shifter on top of it here, screw it in, you'll see it's pushing the bush in. So if you screw it down till the bush touches and stops right there, you can back it off, and you can take all your pieces. You have to sort of mount it vertical to do this one, because otherwise it's hard by yourself to manage all the parts. So there's that first bush in there. Next thing you got to do is you got to shove the pivot arm straight down the guts here, through the other bush into there. I'll just zoom out a bit here. I am zoomed out. Then you'll see it's just sticking out the top here. So then you got to get the other bush, stick it over the top, and line it up with the hole there. So when we take it over the press, it's in there ready to go. And what I usually do here is, just so things don't fall apart, I put the nut and washer on one side, just so it's in place there. And then what I do is, to be able to press it, you need to be able to press without collapsing these two faces here. So I just get a bit of square tube, round pipe, whatever you want to do, put it between there to hold the press in position, hold the arms in position. Then when I just put masking tape around it, or sticky tape around it. Then as you press, it compresses against the tube. I just use two pieces, one either side. I'll tape them together, and I'll show you what I've got when I get over to the press. So what I've got here is, I have one of the tubes off that ball joint kit. So the bolt head and the nut is sort of sticking down through the bottom on one side. These tubes are in the middle here. I just taped them in, so taped around the shaft. Obviously, if you put it through a pipe and you press the bushes, you'll never get it out. So they're just there. You can see it's starting to take up weight on this outside one. Between there to stop these two ends separating, or sorry, collapsing. I have a socket here, so the thread of my next one goes up through inside this socket, and I have just the washer on top, press on that bush, and you'll see as I press, it'll go down into the hole. I'll just sort of zoom in a bit on that bush. Hopefully you'll see what's happening here. See how that's just going straight in there, nice and easy. Now it's got to go in until it touches the washer. That's it. So I'll just zoom back out again. You've seen how easy that was. That was like, it's probably 10 minutes of prep for 1 minute of work. So if you back it off again, you'll see that this socket was over the top of that end of that there. You'll see this one at the bottom was through and onto the back of the control arm, and you'll see that this tube that I put around here was just stopping this from collapsing on itself, and all the bushes are in where they're supposed to be. I'll show you what it looks like when you take the tape off. Just give me 2 seconds as I peel this tape off the tube. There we go. Of course, it's easy to put on and a real shit to get off. There we go. So you'll see there, like the square tube just fits around and it fits and allows the end of the bushes to be sort of protruding through. And I just sticky tape it in a position. You can actually put a cable tie on it, you can put hose clamp on it, whatever you want, but for me I just put tape because the tape works nice and easy. So then you take that off, and what you got then is you put your other nut on, and you have the control arm ready to go. Simple. Right, next what we're going to do here is we're going to install the ball joint, the upper ball joint. So as you can see on these, this is the left hand side one. You can tell it's the left hand side because it has that, where's the picture, it has that L on it there. Standard from factory, these had upper ball joint in there, and they had these rivets riveted into those. So obviously this has been changed at some stage because I didn't drill the rivets out of it. But what happens now is it gets bolted in. The modern ones get bolted in with high tensile bolts. You can tell by the star pattern on top of that, that's a 8.8 bolt. So what you do is you're just popping them all through the holes and putting nuts and spring washers on the back of them, like this. Nut on there, spring washer on there. I'll stick all the bolts through the holes first. I'll make it easier to keep in place. Now obviously if you're thinking about perfect geometry, see how much movement you get in this ball joint here. So you've got to try and centralize it as best you can, and then put your nuts on. Put the spring washer on there. Nut on. Spring washer. Nut. Lucky last. Spring washer. And nut. So what you end up with is a bolted in upper ball joint, and when you see it from the bottom, you see there's just these bolts here. So I'll tighten those up now. I'll just hold it between one of these here. You can kind of feel it centralise itself as you tighten these. Felt the ball joint move a bit then. Alright, that's going nice and tight. Just make sure, these are far easier to do out of the car than they are in the car. So hold the bolt, always hold the bolt, tighten the nut. There's probably a torque setting for this, but I know how tight I can get it by hand, and I know it's the same as or slightly tighter than the torque setting. There we go. So there we go. That's in there. What's got to happen next is there's this sort of a locking tab type washer, and that goes and it holds the boot down. You can't put it on first because it doesn't fit through the hole, so you've kind of got to see if I can zoom right into that. There you go. You got this washer sort of thing here. You got to. That's a shit image. Anyway, what I do is I put it over the top. See how it's sort of a spiral type spring. I put it over the top and I push the bottom of the washer down, and you kind of just work the rest of the washer around one level at a time. Get it around the top here first. Push it all the way around. Keep working it. So that's down one lip now. Now I need to get it down to the bottom lip. Where's the end of that bloody thing? Right there it is there. It's pretty hard to show you, but because I need to move around quite a bit. You hold the washer out, hold the spring out to give it a bit more, a bit less tension on it. Push it down. Come on, you bugger. Right, push it all the way down. I don't know if you can see it, but because my hands are in the way, but it's now all the way down in the bottom groove there. I don't know if that shows up or not, but it's all the way down in the bottom groove. Here's the two original discs off the car. This one here, you can see it's got plenty of meat on both sides of its cooling fins, so it would have been able to machine that one. This one here, you can see in this location, this side's really thick, this side's really thin. Then you roll it around to this side, and this side's thick and this side's thick. I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? So in the end here is where your cones go for your bearings. There's the cone, outer cone for that bearing there. And on the back, they are seated the opposite direction. So you can slide the bearing onto your stub axle, and then you slip this over the top of it, which slides into that bearing there with a seal in there. But on this one here, the bearing's in backwards. See how you can't get this bearing out? The cone's in the wrong direction, so someone's assembled that wrong. This disc would have shook like shit on this car, which is why this difference in brake sort of disc thickness is really evident. Yeah, so normally this is the part of the bearing that goes on this stub axle, goes on up in here. All right. And then when you slide it on, it just slides through that hole there, right? It just slides into that cone, and the other side you just put the little bearing on from the front, which is like this. There's the little roller bearing, drop in from the front. The washer goes on, which has a little keyway that lines up in there. You see that little keyway, the bottom of there, and this little key on here. That usually slides in there, and then your nut does up, and then you're able to tighten the wheel bearing clearance correctly, like this. But this way here, impossible. All it does is take load off the bearing. It doesn't even run in this face here. It sits back in there and runs backwards on the back of the roller. So it runs on the back of this cage here. So that would have been catastrophic for this car. Whoever was driving it before, whoever owned it before, really shit mechanics. If that's your handiwork, hang up your overalls, mate, because that's really bad. So when you slide that on, when you slide the disc on, this face here seals up against this lip seal here, which stops the grease coming out. It's got a little bit of a lip down there. You can see which sort of fits in that pocket down there behind the bearing. That can't even fit on that one there, so they would have had no seal running on this one. I don't know what the hell's going on. That's really bad. Anyway, something to be mindful of when you find issues like this, like excessive wear. Here that looks like it's probably only 4mm thick there, whereas over here it's probably pushing 6 or 7. So when you see a problem like that, it doesn't just happen for no reason. Investigate what's happening. This bearing shouldn't be in there like that. This outer cone should be up the other way, and that bearing should fit in from the front. Keep an eye out for people's silly shit like that. Thought I'd come over and work on the steering. I have steering components over there. I have inner and outer tie rod ends. I have this new, I can't remember what this thing's freaking called. I have one of those. I have the new, I think it's called like an idler arm. I don't have a new pitman arm, it's just a standard arm, I don't do that. But I did notice that in this gearbox there's a lot of play, in the steering box there's a lot of play in the box. So I need to put a seal kit through it, because as you can see it's very oily, and make an adjustment on this adjustment screw. One thing I noticed was this. If you have a look down here, none of the sort of tie rod ends or ball joints have split pins in them, except that one. So I'm thinking someone's changed these tie rod ends before, because you can get these tie rod ends now that have a like a nylock nut on them instead of these castellated nuts. But whatever you got these ones, they don't stay tight unless you line up that hole down there. Don't know if you can see through it. No, it's full of shit. But you can see the hole down there. They almost lined up. They're almost lined up the hole ready for a split pin, but they didn't. So very dangerous again. I understand the M1s don't have them on them because they've been split. I split them from the car. So issues so far that I've encountered was, remember in one of the previous videos, the actual stub axle was welded to the lower ball joint. No split pins through the steering system. The bearing in the wrong way on the brake discs, which is why that has severe wear and wobble on that disc. Yeah, a lot of problems. So whoever assembled this car previously, or whoever owned it, really, I think they did their own maintenance on it, and they were absolutely shithouse at it. Anyway, I'll just keep updating you with any problems I find.